One of them I was thinking about that I think is important because especially you guys are traditional artists and stuff like that. Like I have a small scanner here, okay? And sometimes I do a bigger drawing, painting, whatever it is, and I want to scan it. One of the things you can do in here, so let me show you something here. I gotta remember where I put it. Okay, so this drawing was too big. Okay, so here's a section of it. That's not the whole thing. Hang on. I don't want that. Oh, here it is. Okay, so it was this. Okay, this was just a quick sketch. This, and that is how I had to scan it because it's too big. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to put those together, obviously, right? And this isn't always going to work perfect, but it works quite a bit. So I'm going to go into Photoshop. I'm not even going to open it. Instead of going to open, I'm going to drop down here to automate, and I'm going to go photo merge, okay? And it's going to give me a dialog box. And that dialog box is going, do I want to fix a perspective? You know, you can, and I want you guys to play with this. Cylindrical, spherical, collage. And then I'm just going to go to reposition because what I want it to do is reposition everything correctly. And then I'm going to go browse. So I got to pick my files. Oops. And here's my 3 files. So I'm going to hold shift and pick these 3 files and hit open. And now I put them in there and I'm going to say okay. And it's thinking. And boom. See how I put it together?
Wow.
Really handy tool. Okay. Now sometimes it's, I don't know what throws it. Sometimes it'll get thrown and it'll do something weird. And I might try 1 or 2 little things. I might try a different setting, like instead of reposition, maybe I'll try collage or something. I don't know. And once in a while, I just won't hit it. It hits it a lot though. Okay. And like on this one, it hit it perfect. And then if you look over here to the right, it's got all of these in layers, the section. See how it's sectioned it together? It's kind of interesting. So what I usually do at this point, I'll keep this and I'll make a copy and then I'll just go select all 3 layers, which I think they're selected. I'll go Command E, flatten them, and now I just got a nice, and then I'll go in here to my crop tool, C, and I'll just crop it down. And there it is, right? Yes?
Hey, Mike, question.
Sure.
When you're, is flattening an image the same as merging layers? Or are they 2 different things?
No, flattening an image. So look, I've got a flattened image now, right? But look, yeah, it's still a regular layer, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I go to flatten image, see how it turned it back into a background layer?
Okay, yeah.
So now it's a locked off background layer, and if I want to save it as a JPEG, I could, because a JPEG won't save layers or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yes, there's a difference. Okay.
Okay.
But if I want to change this back, I could just double click this layer, go okay, and now it's back to a regular layer.
Got it.
And then I would do my usual. Now let's look at something real quick. Let's go up here to under right where we went to adjustments, where we have our brightness, contrast, our levels, and our hue saturation. There's also these down here. So let's try auto contrast. That's not too bad. You know, and you can try those tools. Sometimes they hit something pretty nice. Usually I come in here to levels or something if it's a black and white drawing. If it's a black and white sketch like this, I might go up to adjustment or go to hue saturation. And sometimes what I do is I just desaturate it so it gets color out of it. And see, it looks lighter now. And then I'm going to go back to my levels and I'll adjust it. That's a little better. And get it back to looking like the original sketch did. Does that make sense? Okay. That's a very simple one. Let's see what else I want to go through here. Okay, so another thing I want to go through. Okay, let's go through this real quick, because you guys will like this, I think. So let's take this guy. Okay, now there's a tool here, and again, I don't usually show this early on, but I'm going to do it. We're in a compressed time frame because we're in a summer thing. But I also think I want you guys to start having more variety of tools. That's all. So I'm going to go here, an object selection tool, right there, and I'm going to have these options up here, right here, of lasso or rectangle. Okay, we have the sample all layers, like we've talked about before. Object subtract, which is what we're doing. But I'm going to go to, hang on. I'm going to go to, oh, this is so annoying. Hang on. I don't know what happened here. I'm going to go to the rectangle right here. And then I'm just going to go, and remember, I can adjust this by holding my space bar. I'm going to get it as close as I can to this guy. Maybe that's probably good enough. Now it's thinking. It's thinking a lot. Let's give it a second. Okay, let's see what it did. There it is. Okay, do you guys see how it made a selection? Yes?
Yes.
So now I'm going to go Command C, Command V. Oops, I'm in the wrong program. Command C, Command V to paste it. Oops. And there he is, right? Now that's pulling somebody out of, by the way, if you don't make this a non-background layer, you won't be able to put a layer under it. So I'm going to fill this. Let's see what it looks like. So what I usually do is I go in and I fill it with a mid-tone gray, because that tells me if there's a lot of fringe or anything going on with it. Well, let's fill this layer. And it's a pretty good selection. Like now look, you're going to still have to go in here and get rid of that. Maybe pen tool this out. I might just come in here if it's really slight and get a not too big sort of soft brush. I might be able to just get out of it this way. Oops. Or I might have to pen tool it. But it's a soft edge, so it might work using my eraser tool. And then this in here, I'd probably pen tool out. Get this cleaned up like this. This brush is too low. I want it up higher. So let's go. I could probably, yeah, I can just come in here by hand probably and get rid of some of this. So on and so forth. And now another thing. So let's look at this. If this whole thing had just a tiny bit of problems around it, like we're getting like on the fingertips, like here, like right there, and that was all the problem was, not this big web finger thing. Does all that make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, so another thing, let's try this. Let's go back to this file again. So let's see what happens now if we go, instead of, I'm going to go back to the object selection tool. Instead of using the rectangle, I'm going to use the lasso tool. So I'm going to come in here. Now ideally I should go closer, but that's fine. So what happens if I come in here inside these fingers a little bit? I figured out all this up here pretty good, so I'm not too worried about that. Yeah, it still didn't get the web finger thing. But that's okay, that's easy to fix. Okay, but other than that, it's a pretty nice selection, correct?
Yes.
It is.
Now, if I had just a little bit of fringing out here, one thing I might do, again, this is a selection thing, so I'm going to go, now remember, we can command click the image right here, the thumbnail, command click it and it reselects it. okay? I'm gonna put my gray back here because I like to have that as a, now you guys know why I use a mid-value gray. If there's white fringe hanging over it, I'll see it. If there's dark fringe hanging over it, I'll see it, okay? So it lets me make a nice clean selection. Okay, so if I had a little bit of stuff going on up here, and again, our selection, we're dealing with a selection. So this is under select, okay? I'm gonna go to modify, and I could go to either expand, don't worry about smoother border yet. I could go to expand, contract, feather, but I'm gonna go to contract. And if I wanted to pull it in a little bit, that selection, I just give it a number of pixels. This will be too many, but I'm gonna go, okay. And see how it pulls it in? And then I could just go invert and get rid of it. Now I would never go in that far. Let's go again. I would go select, modify, contract, and I'd probably try like 2 maybe. And then I look at it and go, okay, maybe that's not so bad. Probably still too much. And it'll just get rid of any little excess overhang. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or I might use that, let's do this again. I might use that selection instead of like, because I don't need it up here, right? But I might go down here and I'd have to go a little more, you know, and start erasing out this oversplash here. And use it as a selection tool. That's actually the gray behind it. There. Okay, so I might just make a mask out of it where it goes inside a little bit and I can just use that to erase off overhanging shapes and things. Make sense?
Yes.
Now, what I don't want you to do is go, oh, cool, I don't have to use the pen tool anymore. Yes, you do. Okay, because there's going to be like in here, for sure, I would come in here probably with my pen tool. And try and get this kind of cleaned up a little.
And Mike, for if somebody has like really wispy hair or like loose strands of hair, do you use the pen tool? Would you recommend the pen tool?
There's a bunch of ways to do that. If you're trying to, there's going to be, I'll show you some stuff next week around more complex selections like that.
Okay.
For this, I might start here and go, okay, I'm going to have to recreate some of that hair maybe, or I'm going to have to kind of go in and erase things out. You're probably, if it's wispy hair, you're going to have to do a lot of work. That's just that, okay? Mm-hmm. Especially if it's somebody like standing in a forest and you want to extract them from that background. That's a lot of work, okay? Not that that's bad, but it's just, you know, usually is, okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to make a selection out of this. Oops, what was in the background for some reason? There, right? So we're starting to get a nice selection. Make sense?
Yes, that looks better.
Okay, object selection tool, okay? Now, let's take this same guy again and do something else. So now we have this guy again. I want to make a copy of this. And now let's do the opposite, okay? So I'm going to go use my Polygon Lasso Tool. You can use whatever. You can use your pen tool. I'm going to get as close as I can to him. I'm going to go real sloppy on the fingers. Let's see what it does. Now, let's say I want to get rid of him. Okay, so we know our edit fill, correct? Yes?
Yes.
So if I go edit fill and I go foreground color, boom, that's what it's going to do, right? Or background color. So now we're going to do a different one. We're going to go edit, fill, content aware. Let's just try that. And it does a pretty good job of it, okay?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
That's
And
insane.
sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't. But usually it works pretty damn good. Now I could take this guy and go, okay, maybe I wanted him over here a little more, so I could put some type over here, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, right? And I go, I want to do some cool vertical type. Now here's another thing, you guys. I'm going to if I double click when you're using this type, if I double click the little icon, it'll select it for me. I'm going to flip this to white. So I flip it over here on my foreground background. And I'm going to go, that's too bright. So I'm going to take down the opacity a little bit. And then I go, I think I want a bolder font. I'm going to come up here and go Avenir. And heavy. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Now I can start doing all kinds of things here now because I have a pretty clean background. And in this context, that background's probably fine. Like I wouldn't know offhand, but now I could use him as a selecting tool because all I have to do is right or command click on the little icon or on the little thumbnail. And I don't know, maybe I would take some of this background color, put a layer over him. I'm just gonna play around here a little bit. So some of this stuff I'm just gonna riff on today because I like doing that better than being formal. Okay, so let's go. I'm gonna go to my color to transparent, and then I'm gonna pull a little here. Now I don't want it all down here. So I'm gonna I'll just get my, actually I'll just do it this way because I want all this done. It's too much. Oops. Oh, I didn't put it on its own layer. Hang on. It's got to be on its own layer. Or maybe I'd even just come in here with a big soft brush, a really low opacity brush. I'm going to put a really big brush up here. A really big brush. I'm going to go up here and lower the opacity down to really low. Let's try 40. Really soft brush. I want it more softer. Yeah, it's not soft enough. You know, maybe I'd leave some of this on here, down here, probably not a lot. And then again, maybe I'd come up here through my overlays. See if I can find something that's interesting. It sort of speaks to him having a little bit of that light on him. Like that maybe. And then I want to drop down this opacity. And see how he's got just a hint of that forest color reflecting on him now?
Yeah, that looks cool.
What that does is that puts him into the same environment. And I might even do that even though this was shot literally in that forest. It's like it's not picking up that ambient light, that reflected light. So, and with you guys, what you guys are doing, you're creating artificial environments. So you might have to go, hey, I've got a light source up here and I'm going to have all my characters lit by that light source. It'll unify all of them. Or if you have a car, a red car sitting on a street that you pasted into a scene and you got that nice blue sky, you might do the same thing where you just drag a gradient over the hood, the roof, and the tail, what do you call that, trunk, and then pull it back a little bit so it looks like that blue's reflecting into that car a little bit, and it's going to put that car into the scene more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Okay, so look. See that? I can turn it down a little more because I keep having to adjust. And this is on vivid light. I just found it, right? I just roll through my, whatever you call it, my layers, layer overlay. Okay, so probably more like there. Okay, it's really subtle. There, that's nice. you know, and I could still go in with my soft brush and pull some of it out with my real low opacity brush and just go in and play, okay? Make sense?
Yeah.
Like right now, and I know this stuff, I wouldn't know that that had been pulled out, moved, and relit, okay? And that's the goal. It's like you always hear special effects people say in the movies. They go, if we do our job right, you don't know we did. We don't know. You don't know. You kind of want to do the same thing in Photoshop. You don't want it to be this super obvious thing. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Okay. Now, the reason I'm showing you these tools ahead of time, because I usually force you guys into using the pen tool, but you know, I also need to show you a variety of selection tools, and I want to give you the skill set where you can be successful doing whatever you're doing. But again, don't avoid the pen tool. Once you get used to it, it's not a big thing at all. Okay, does everybody understand that?
Yeah.
Everybody understand learning how to ride a bike, how hard it was? Now you barely can fall off a bike. It's the same thing, okay? Okay, so there's that guy. So let's look at a couple other things here. Okay, I wanted to go through that. Okay, so we've gone through select, modify, where we can contract or expand our selection. There's also a feather thing on there, so let's look at this. Let's go, let's click the icon, command click, make our selection again. I'm gonna go up to filter, and then wait, I'm gonna invert the selection because I wanna take it out around the edges. So modify, or let's go, I'm sorry, select, inverse. So now it's got the background. Actually, wait, let me go back first. I'm gonna go select, modify. I'm gonna do a big contraction. I would never do this. Let's do, I just want you to be able to see it. Let's do 10. And then let's go, I think I can do it this way. Actually, let's do it this way. I'm gonna try something else. Modify. It didn't give me my option, which, oh wait, it's probably over here. There it is. Okay, so here's my feather selection. I'm gonna make it ridiculous. I'm gonna go to feather radius 25. And then I'm gonna go select invert. I want to take it out around and go, and see how much it feathered that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I might use that once in a while. I might go, if I want to just go, like sometimes on something like this, as it goes towards the background, like I'm, you know, sometimes like I'll go, okay, I've got a pretty hard edge all the way around, and it's not bad. It looks fairly natural, but I might, just to kind of give it a little more painterly idea, I might take this blur tool that we talked about a little bit. And again, here's the strength, 100% right now. It's normal mode, which means I'm not doing any of these overlays because I don't need that on here. And then I might kind of come in here and go to that layer. And I can just selectively blur out a little bit back here. And it just sort of, because that's the back part of it, so you can see it blurring out a little bit. That's a little much. I'm doing a little more than I normally would. I can come back here and sort of blur out a little of this back here. And all that does is it just starts to go, see, it looks a little more natural. It's a painter's trick. So when you're doing like even a portrait, the back of the head, like if I'm turning this way, the back of the head here might get a little softer. So it's almost implying that idea of distance, even though it's not going to be that much distance. But when you look at something directly, you're looking at somebody's face, everything like around the side of their head and everything does kind of fade off. So it's a little bit how you see. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I might just soften it. Those are just design decisions, okay? Artistic decisions, that's all they are. You don't have to do it. It looked fine before. I just kind of look at it and go, well, I can kind of heighten it a little bit. So that's just this blur tool, okay? Now we've already talked about, I have another blur, I have a bunch of blur tools up here. If I want to blur the whole thing, I'd go back to my Gaussian blur, you know, and just pull this slider however much I want it, okay? Okay, all that makes sense, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go, let's look at some, I'm gonna pull this guy up now, hang on. let's pull, not him. Pull this guy up. So let's just start talking about filters. And here's the thing with filters. You got to go in and play with them. I'm going to play with a few of them here just to get you started. Now the Gaussian blur filter we just use, that's a filter, okay? Now when we're first starting out like we are right now, I like to keep this simple, okay? So I'm going, so like I talked about, when we're talking about selections, it's mostly going to be here under select. And filters is like that too, where it's like, here's your filters, okay? So let's just go through some easy things. Like, let's put some type on here. Oops. You have to just go to your type tool to do type. And I want to shrink this down a little bit. Oops. Remember in Photoshop now, you don't have to hold shift to constrain anymore. It's the opposite. All right, so I'm going to rasterize this layer. So I'm going to go up to layer, rasterize type, because I don't want it to be type right now. I just want it to be a shape. Oops. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry, because I hit a button. I wasn't sure if I muted myself. Let's go to filter. Let's go first to here. Let's go to layer, layer style. Okay, so these are just filters also. And I'm going to go to drop shadow. But we'll go to the obvious ones, okay? Now you're going to get these. This is a dialog box, okay? So let's go. So it's got its blend modes. You see that's repeating everywhere. The blend modes is what you have in your overlays in your layers panel, right? But when you have it specifically to a tool, it's only going to apply it to the tool, not the whole layer. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So let's see. I'm not getting. Let's go. There it is. Okay, so you see the drop shadow?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so look right here where it says angle. That's the angle of the light. So I don't like it going off to the left like that. So I'm going to put the light over here. Okay, then I have opacity. I can drop down the opacity of it. The distance, I can pull it up so it's not so far away. It probably looks a little more normal. The spread is how soft or hard it is. So it's a little, or actually the size is how soft or hard it is. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It just
Okay,
moves.
so you're going to have a few tools in here. These over here are just asking you the things you want to add to it. Okay, but I don't want to go through it that way yet. You can do it that way later, but I just want to go through these clearly. So that's drop shadow, okay? We could go layer, layer style. And again, we're talking about layers, layer styles, okay? So, you know, I'm just trying to remember up in your file, we're talking about layers. So just go under layers, right? Let's go to Bevel Emboss. And you can see it gave it a bevel, okay? And again, here's our little dialog box. Here's the depth. Look, see how I dial that in? It gets stronger. Here's the size of it. Now it gets a little too soft. I don't want that. Like that. Here's the type of bevel it is. So outer bevel, there's that. Inner bevel is what we just did. Emboss. Pillow emboss. Stroke emboss, so on and so forth. Let's just leave it at inner bevel for now. Soften, you can soften the edge, the bevel. Make the size a little like that. Here's your angle of light again. Now it gets a little more sophisticated. I can pull it in, I can pull it out. Get a little more sophisticated. Now here's my contour. So this is the contour. Do you guys understand that as showing the contour of the bevel? Watch. It changes the contour based on this profile. So it's like looking at something in a cross section. Does that make sense?
The ways you look at it, like what direction you'd be looking at. If
Well,
those are
it's
real-
like, okay, you can have a bevel that just does, look, you can have a bevel You can have a bevel that just does, oops, it just does this. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Or, so if I looked at that from a side view right here, I'm going to see this, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I did my bevel where it goes like this, then it's going to show it to me in that preview thing like that. Because that's this profile right there. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically doing a cross section and then showing it to you from a front view. Now again, this is going to become kind of irrelevant because you're going to just kind of go, try that one, try that one, try that one. I just want you to understand what that's telling you, okay? So let's do this again. Filter, layer styles. And we're going to go to Bevel Emboss. So here's those right here. So those are your cross sections, okay? And it's showing it to you right here, what your cross section is, what it's gonna do. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, and let's see if we have any easy ones. Now, the reason I don't sit around here and talk about filters and layer styles forever, because you gotta go in and play with them. And they're all basically the same. They give you a set of parameters, you go and you start playing with those parameters. Let's see. Outer glow. See, I gave it an outer glow. Now that's on screen. I don't want it on screen. I want to put it on normal. Here's the opacity. See how it gets more intense. I can change the color right here. Let's make it more of a bluish thing. So I changed that. Here's my gradient. So I could probably change that. I never have done that actually. Here's the spread. So the spread, if you notice, it's not soft, but I can pull it out more and then I can soften it right here. Okay? I don't like it that, I like it more like that, I guess. Again, you have your contour. I don't know how that applies to this. It shows it right here, but I don't know if that's gonna have that much difference. Here's jitter, which doesn't do anything. Range. Make sense? Outer glow.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Now, the reason I'm picking these is they're kind of common ones and they're very easy to play with and start to understand it, okay? Let's see if there's another one. Inner shadow. Let's see what satin is. I don't even know if I've ever even used that. I'm not exactly sure what satin is. I'll have to look that up. Yeah. Okay, it probably needs a bigger surface area. So let's look at this guy now. Okay, does all that make sense? Do we have questions?
No, I got it.
I basically want you to go in and play with them. Okay, layer styles, filters. Okay. So now we have this guy again. I'm gonna get rid of this layer. So let's go under filter now, not layer styles. Layer styles was all those basic things. Now we're jumping over to filters, okay? And let's go to, I'm gonna go to easy things. We have our blur gallery. So we already know Gaussian blur, but there's all these other ones like radial blur. Hang on. Now look down here. That's what it's doing. Look at the amount. Now this one doesn't give you a preview, which is kind of weird. I'm going to really go for it here and go way over here. Okay, that's going way far with it, but does that make sense how it does that sort of radial blur?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Oops. Oops. Hang on. So we have a bunch of options here. We got blur, motion blur. This comes in really handy for some things. Now, here's the angle of the blur. Does that make sense?
The angle, yeah.
You're thinking. Look, here's something that's kind of interesting, or it's simple. Let's go down here. Let's go here. Let me grab this real quick. Because this is all going to come in handy for what you guys are working on, okay? Let's take this image. I didn't think of this before class, or I would have already done this. Let's take this. This is way too small an image to use for this, but oh well. Oops, I don't want to put that there. Hang on a sec. Okay, let's try. I'm just going to ask it. I'll just use this. All right. Yeah, this is better. Okay, so let's use this. So let's take this. Oops. And we're going to use our object selection tool. I'm going to go to rectangle. This has got watermarks all over it, but I'm not going to worry about that. Here's our object selection tool. CV. Get rid of that. Get rid of this little leftover. I would normally put a scene behind this, but we'll just fill it with our gray again. It's a little dark. We'll lighten it up. And then I'm going to make a copy of this. By the way, you can make a copy just by dragging it onto this little plus thing where you make your layer. And I'm going to pull it behind it. And then I'm going to go filter, blur, motion blur. I'm going to give it quite a bit of it. Maybe I can angle it down a little. Yeah, more like that. Then I could probably just come up here. Probably just get rid of it from here forward.
Mm.
And I start to get a little motion blur. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So just mixing and matching, okay? There's a bunch of ways I can do that. Now, we could go the whole thing. Let's go to blur again. I don't know what box blur is. It's shape blur. So you can go through these and start playing with them, okay? You're going to have dialog boxes, and you're going to basically pull and push and re-angle. Make sense?
Yes.
Now, let's see. What else do we want to go through? Let's go back to the old guy.
Mm-hmm.
I like this guy because it's just kind of it's a nice photo.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go filter. Let's try pixelate. We could go to color halftone. Now this one has, you have to play with this a little more. It has these different parameters you can set. And it just gives us that classic halftone look, okay?
Oh.
By the way, that's what you see if you look at a magazine or a book or anything like that. If you take a loop, that's what it looks like, okay? That's what a color halftone is. And usually I do that in this class, but we're not in class. And we usually look at it through a loop, and you'll see it's just 4 dots, just grouped in different ways, and that's what creates this kind of an image, okay? And sometimes you use it as a design aesthetic, halftone. Let's go to Pixelate, and I'm just going through some of these randomly, okay? Let's try Crystallize. So this is the effect this is doing. So see how it's giving me a preview?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I like it about there. Okay? And it just gives it kind of an interesting look. Now you got to be careful with these things. You don't want to get formulaic. But what's interesting is sometimes you can take these things and sort of use them in conjunction with each other and start creating some really interesting effects. Does that make sense?
Yes.
This to me just screams to want to be sepia or something if I had this kind of a look. So I might come up here, find a sort of a brown, pull it more into brown like here. And then what can I do? I can go up to my adjustments, hue saturation, just like we talked about. And again, I hit this little colorize button. It's going to pick up this color here. Then that just feels pretty good as a sort of a halftone or a sepia tone thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, it makes it look old.
Yeah, because it's just, I'm going by things that it's suggesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just look at that kind of pixelated image and I go, it feels like it should be sepia tone. Let's go to filter, pixelate. Let's try fragment. It does that. Let's go to filter, pixelate, mezzotint. Gives me this dialog box. And it's not fine dots, medium dots, grainy dots. Let's try fine dots. Oops. And by the way, right here, your image thing, it has plus or minus. So if I need to see it smaller, I can see it like that. See it up close like that. Short lines, I can put lines in it. Medium lines. Okay. And I can dial it in, okay? This is all under one thing, Mosaic. So it just gives you your pixelated thing, and I just pull here for the cell size. And by the way, right here, you guys, a lot of stuff in Photoshop is going to have this button that says preview. If that's not clicked, you won't see what's going on, okay? So hit preview, and then you can sit here, and this one, you just pull it in. I mean, it's really simple, and that's it, okay? Obviously, you see that a lot. And you're going to start seeing these as you go. You're going to go, oh, there's a mezzotint, and there's the this, and there's that. You'll see it in advertising and whatever. And start looking for it. It's actually kind of interesting. Pointillize. Gives me this dialog box. Cell size. So I could go all the way up to here if I wanted. Okay. Now, that all makes sense? We're just dialing them in, right?
Yeah, you're just changing areas, making the look different.
Yeah. And you're just usually you're just pulling things in, changing the angle, the lighting, stuff like that. Okay. So let's go here. Now this one, okay, 3D, let's see what else. Noise, you can just add noise to it, just like that. Make sure this preview is selected, and then I can just pull in how much noise I want on it. Like that. And I'm not going to go through all of them, don't worry. We'll go to Stylize in a minute. Blur, we've gone through. 3D, we'll go through later. We're going to go through a whole thing with 3D, so don't worry about that. Now here, you can go into these sort of distort tools. So ripple. Medium. Now this one, for some reason, doesn't give you a preview. I don't know why. Oh, there it is right there. But I like it better when it's bigger, but that's fine. So here's a ripple. Here's medium, large. Let's go back to medium. And it just sort of gives it, you know, like a watery, rippley effect. Sort of like you're looking through glass block. And a lot of these, by the way, I use for like quick renderings and things like that, where if I had this guy standing outside of like a bubble glass window, I just use that, a little subtle bit of it, so it looks like you're looking through the window, and then I'd reduce his value, and I'm done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm not just using these to just, I actually mostly don't use these to go, oh, I want that effect. It's because like, oh, this is a quick way for me to get that to do this rendering of whatever I'm doing. Okay, or it might be something I drew, and then I go, it needs a little more of effect like it's going through a window. Maybe I already painted that figure, and I'll add this effect to it to push it behind some glass, and then I'll reduce it in value, and boom, it's behind glass. Let's go to distort, pinch. See what that is. I haven't used that forever. I don't even know. Right here, it's got your mesh, and then I just go. It's either going to push it out or concave it in. Okay, so it's literally what it says. It's just pinch. Twirl. just exactly what it says. Okay.
Mhm.
So, okay. So you're going to get a lot of those. Now, if we go into style, or let's do this. Let's go into render, and you got to be careful of this. People go crazy with this thing. And let's go render, and we'll go through these later. We'll go through some of these later. Lens flare. You're going to get this dialog box, and here's your little lens flare. And if you look down here, it goes, here's the different type of lenses for lens flare. So let's say this one, maybe he's getting backlit back here. I'm going to push it up a little bit. Let's see if this one's better or not. No, I kind of like that one. You know, maybe he's getting backlit. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be careful with that. People get really insane with it, and they take something, they just put lens flares all over it, and it's just like, don't do that. You know, sparingly. You know, and then this is kind of interesting, and we'll get into this more later, but under render, I can go into these different things and go tree, and it's going to give me, this comes in really handy for some things. It's going to literally give me trees, right? And then I can go, I want an oak tree. This is really great if you're doing architectural rendering or something like that. And then I can change the lighting direction. Oops.
Mhm.
I just changed something else. Change the lighting direction. So let's go here. I can change how many leaves I have. And I can just go through here, branch thickness, branch height. Let's go higher. That's funky looking tree. But then I go, okay. And it renders the tree. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And usually I would do that on its own layer. It really comes in handy if you're doing really down and dirty quick stuff. And it's fairly realistic looking. You can just go boom, 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 pop those things in there, start painting over it, and you're done. Okay? Remember, this class was designed for digital artists. That's why I'm talking about a lot of this stuff. Okay? Okay, so let's now look at, so that's under render. Main thing I want you to look at is lens flare. You know, and then you have these other things you can put in there, flame. Man, not on the right layer, it's fine. So let's go to this one, Stylize Oil Paint, okay? And let's go, if you look up here, you can see the preview. I'm gonna go about there. I wanna make the scale bigger. Now I'm gonna go way bigger than I normally do with this so you can see it. And then bristle detail. I want more, actually. Oh, here's the preview. Okay, so there's our preview. I didn't have preview click. You see how it's starting to put like mask together stuff so it looks a little more brush strokey?
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
I've actually seen this used pretty well. Usually I have to play with it a little bit. Okay, so let's go to stylization. That's a little more how clean it is. It's a little more stylized there. Scale. That's kind of nice. And then bristle detail. And then here's the lighting angle. And then shine. I don't know what that is. Oh, that's interesting. So it starts to go Van Gogh here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, under filter, stylize, you've got all these weird, or not weird, but solarize. You've got find edges. Starts to get a little, if I desaturate that, it starts to look a little bit charcoaly, a little Nikolai Fetcheny, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what I want to get you guys started on is playing around with these. Extrude, not usually a good one. But I mean, for other things it is, not necessarily this. Yeah, you have all these dial-in things. That's kind of interesting, actually. You know, tiles is kind of cool. So what it's going to do here, give you this dialog box, number of tiles, background color. I'm going to use the foreground color. You know. So using these things in conjunction with each other, they work pretty good. And I'll go through real quick Liquify, because this comes in handy for a lot of things. So it's just going to give you this dialog box. Well, let's look at this real quick. Hang on. Let's get like a normal. Use this guy because he looks. Let's go to the filter, Liquify, and let's go. Okay, so these icons over here, like this is smudge. So you could literally, you know, just sort of reshape things that way. And then you have all these parameters over here. And by the way, it'll automatically, you go eyes. Might not be able to see him right on this picture. Hang on. Let's get a more standard picture. Let's just get a front view. Let's get a real estate agent. Let's use this guy. Oh, yeah. Let's try this. Probably just a really small picture. And let's see if we can do it. Now, it should be able to I'm on preview. I might have to get a better image. It still lets me do all this stuff. I can, so if I want to do the eyes, let's just do it from here. Make them smaller. This will blow them out. Right? And you can just, and then you can just use like this one to sort of, I use that a lot for water ripples and things. If I have a boat and then I want to put some water ripples in, I might take that and kind of ripple them out a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then over here, normally what it'll do, under it says eye size, like this left one will make the left eye bigger, this one will make the right eye bigger, and it'll just figure it out on its own. You can just adjust it, okay? Pretty simple tool, but it's really good for a lot of different things. Let me see what else I want to cover. Okay. Does all that make sense, you guys?
Yeah, sure. You just have to practice, work with it, like you
Yeah,
said.
you know what you gotta do? Go in and just screw around first. You know?
Yeah.
Just get some images and totally screw around. Don't worry about trying to apply it like in a logical way. Just go in and go, because almost all of them are going to be very similar. They come up with a dialog box. Sometimes it's very simple, like we've seen, where you're just dialing in how big the pixels are and things like that. Sometimes they'll give you more parameters because it's a little more detailed, you know, so on and so forth. But the main thing is that they're all basically, you pick the tool, you've got parameters to adjust the tool, and that's about it, okay? And I can sit here and go through these all day long, but that doesn't really matter. You've got to go play around with it. And they're basically following the same format, either sliders or, you know, once in a while you have to dial in a coordinate number or whatever. And again, you can play with those for a while, and then you start going, oh, I see, this does that, and that does this. You'll start figuring it out. I just want to make sure there's another one I want to go through. Oh, okay, one more thing on this idea. And my computer was giving me some problems with this morning. It kept crashing, so hopefully it doesn't do that. Let's pick another image. So let's do this guy. Okay, so there's this other tool in here. Filter, render, lighting. So it's under the same place where we had our lens flare. You go lighting effects. And see, that's what it keeps doing. Hang on. Let's see if I can get it. If I can just get it up on the one thing, I can explain it to you. Now, actually, it's not the one I want. Grab this guy. Where'd he go? Oh, here it is. Let's try this again. There it is. Okay, so I think I have this on this one, or maybe it's this one. I can't remember, but if I click them for some reason right now, it's crashing. I don't know why. So anyway, it'll give you this, okay, which is all your parameters for your lighting. Okay, so I can push this up or make it more focused, like here. I can pull this up and make it a little more, you know, coming down from the top, and I can widen it out a little bit. And then I can also go here to color, and let's put it this way so it looks a little more sinister. Intensity. I don't want it too intense. I probably want to pull it back a little bit. And then I'm going to hit OK. And I start to get this nice lighting effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, again, you know, I probably could come in here with another layer. Let's get a soft brush. I don't know if this will work or not. And let's get a really ridiculous blue. Let's do a cyan. That's fine. And I'm going to go, I got a layer over it. I got a soft brush. I'm going to lower down the opacity. And maybe I'll put a little less than that. Maybe I'll say there's a side light coming in here. And again, I'm going to jump to my overlays. See if I can find one that'll lay it in there nice. That's starting to work. That's linear light. It's starting to work. So the one that's working the best, green's not too bad. So I could start to come in here and go, okay, pull it up a little. Pull it a little more subtly. And let's go. I'd probably come over here back with another soft eraser brush. Pull the opacity down. Make sure it's real big. And I'd probably get rid of some of this kind of overspray. And then I could make this much more probably intense if I wanted. But I like the subtlety of it. And then I could build it up and get it. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah.
And then I could build up maybe a little more where it get a little more intense light where it feels like he's getting blue light, and then it gets a little more intense, and that's it. So it would feel like he's getting a sort of a key light on the side of his face. Make sense?
Yeah.
But it's a nice effect. It's so simple, right?
Mike?
Yeah.
Can you use those with layer masks as well?
I don't, can you? You could probably do it. I'll look into that. Let me look into that. I think if you put it on its own, well, if I did,
Maybe in a
actually, I could
non-destructive
do a
layer?
layer mask. I could do a layer mask over this probably, and maybe do the same thing. How would I do that? Hang on. Where I could do a color and then I could paint it in and out. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
I actually might go over and do like, if I really wanted to get into this with a layer mask, I might even just come in here and just do, and not even that. I might even just come in here and go, okay, I've got this intense blue. I mean, there's different ways you can do it. This is just off the top of my head. You know, I might go, I'm going to put a bunch of this in here. And just sort of block it all out. And then I could probably, oops, sorry, screwed up. Probably put a layer mask over this. Default this out. And then go back to my brush. And let me see, I've only got the opacity at 8%. Let's pull it up. And that's too much. And I could paint this in and out. And and I'm glad you asked that, by the way. The reason that would be smart is that then I could go, well, I went a little over. I'm going to flip it to white and paint some of this back in, and I could get it pretty perfect. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to throw down the color and then pull it out, paint it back in, and I could get it really dialed in really nice. Make sense? And then, you know, I could do other things. Hang on. You know, I could probably come in here and paint a more intense orange in here. Let's try that. Let's go. I'm going to go really over intense with this. Let's see what this looks like. And I could do the same thing in here, to your point. Actually, it'd be a good way to work. And put a layer mask on this. And pop that in. I'd probably try and find an overlay for this. Let's see. That's not too bad. That's on color dodge. And then, you know, if I wanted to say that there's a little bit of point source for this, even though his eyes are closed, I might go to a more intense color. I'd have to dial that in. I don't know what it would be yet. You know, and I could have a little bit of light peeking through his closed eyelids. Probably have to get this really intense. Now, the way I would do this is exactly how I'm doing it. Then I'd go, okay, that's too hard. I probably got to soften that up a little bit. Can I try doing Gaussian blur? Is that going to be, because I kind of want to keep it a little bit hard-edged. You know, do I come in here and reshape that with the eraser? Or I go where it's a little too oversprayish, I'll get rid of some of it. That's probably going to work. And then what I would have to do is dial this in from a color perspective, which it's not yet. Because what I want to do is have a source of light to make his eyes, around his eye sockets light up a little bit. So I have to give it some sort of, and now I'm going to go Command U, and I'm going to try and dial through the color spectrum and see if there's a better color for that. Like that cool is kind of interesting. Do I saturate it more? And I just start playing around, and then it's kind of making sense with this blue on his cheek and stuff that maybe that's throwing a little bit of light out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you can see I'm not doing much here. I just know what tools to use, and I just know what works. Does that make sense? That takes a little bit of time and all that. I get it. But this is kind of what, you know, and then I might go back to my type tool. This isn't a very interesting. I have a, I got a better one. Hang on. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go, well, that doesn't match. Maybe this does. Maybe that one matches a little better. Now that color's not good. So first thing I'm going to do is go, can I just lower the opacity? Maybe it'll feel better. It does feel a little better. Maybe it's a color. You know, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just made your advertisement for your haunted house for Halloween. Right?
Yeah.
And I could keep going and going and going. Once I start on this stuff, man, I just keep going down the rabbit hole. But you can see how effective that lighting tool is, right? Under render.
Yeah, it's nuts.
You,
You know what's nuts? Whenever I look at old, actually the stuff I put up yesterday, that Storm Thorgerson guy or whatever his name is, like we used to see that when we were kids, those kind of surreal images he made. Like there was no Photoshop then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And here we are in 2020, and I'm referencing him because I'm going, he was really good at that. Screw Photoshop. It's not about the tools. You got to learn the tools. But he was doing that 40 years ago or more. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But what's weird about it is I look at that and I go, God, like all you guys can do that level of work. By the time you're out of here, you should, you know, be pretty close. And I want you guys to understand I'm going to push you because this is a class for digital artists. So, you know, whatever it is you do, you know, graphic design, illustration, entertainment design, I want to push you so you're able to use all those tools in your field, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Questions?
Can you go back to where the lighting tool was originally under render, right?
Yeah, let's get rid of this. Now I want to play with this more, but I just want to do one more thing. Hang on. By the way, what I'm looking for here, I like lighting things. So I like to have a light source. Now so I'm going to cancel that. So now I have an excuse, by the way, so I could come in here and probably put another layer on here. Hang on. I'm going to sample this color, see if I can sample it. No, I can't. I'm going to go back here. Sorry, hang on. And I'm going to go back to my brush. A new layer. And I would probably come back in here now, because now I have a little bit of a light source. I might come in here and go, that light is going to hit a little there, a little here, not up there probably. And maybe just a hair there. I'm pushing that. And then I do the same thing where I go layer mask, brush, lower my opacity. And I would shake this out a little bit. And then again, now I'm just half-assing this, and then again, I'd go through my layers and find out what works. And then I'd probably reshape it some more. So now I go back to this, go back to my, make sure you got to be on your layer mask, by the way. And then I'd probably knock some of that down and start to build it. It'd have to be a little more purpley, but that's fine because now I can go in here And I'm just using my mouse right now, by the way. I'm not using a tablet. You know, I could go back to here, back to my hue saturation again on that layer. Now again, I had to go back to the image part, not the mask, because I'm going to affect the color. And I'm going to dial that closer into what that purple is. And then maybe saturate it a little more. See if the brightness could be pulled up a little. I think it actually needs to go down a little. And I just start giving it a little bit of life. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah? Okay. All right, so let's go back to your lighting thing, your question. Where do you go? Oh, it's over there. Filter, render, we have lens flare and lighting effects. Lighting effects is what we use.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, again, it's on the wrong thing for some reason. Let's see if I can. I think it was on this one. See, it keeps crashing mine for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on. And then, okay, so let's try this one more time. I don't know why it's doing that. And it's not a memory thing because my computer has enough memory. Let's go filter, render, lighting effects. Okay, now it's, for some reason I turned it on there and then the next time I open it, it does. I don't know why it's doing that. So then it just gives you this and you can move it around. And there's your point source of your lighting. So if I want to bottom light it, because that'll make them look a little more sinister, I could pull it out this way, you know, and play around with
Gotcha.
pulling it like that maybe, because that'll make them look a little more sinister. And there he is. Whatever you want to do.
Mike?
Yeah.
For some reason, when I throw a photo in mine, it's not giving me the option for lighting effect. I can go to render and it's grayed out. Do you have to do something special to get it?
No, you shouldn't have to. The only thing I'm noticing with because I haven't opened up lighting effects in a long time, so it feels to me like in 2020 they changed a few things, and I'm going to have to figure out what it is.
Okay, I'll play around.
But play around with it because I get the same thing sometimes with like, is your layer selected?
Yeah, but I have multiple layers too, so I don't know if that's affecting it.
Well, it could depend on. It might be like there's just something small on a layer, and it's kind of like, what do you want to light? I don't think that would do that, but
I'll play with it with other
yeah,
images.
play with it,
see
and
what's
then let
going
me
on.
know if you're still having problems with it, because I have that once in a while where all of a sudden, like, I'll go, I'm going to go up to layer styles, and it's not there, and then I'll go back in and go, wait a minute, I'll click this and select that or whatever, and all of a sudden it comes
Yeah,
back.
renders there. Just for some reason, lighting effects is grayed out. but
Yeah,
I'll
I've
figure
had
it
that
out.
happen before. So just try, if it's a lockdown layer, try that. That shouldn't do it, but I'm having a few little issues. Like right now, see this thing just popped up? For some reason, mine keeps crashing, and I'm not sure if that's a glitch. It feels like a glitch. And then I click the thing I want to do, and then when I reopen it, then it's back up again. It's weird.
Yeah.
Because what
Cool,
mine
I'll
was
look at
doing this morning, it was giving me nothing but a black screen. That was it. And then I go, oh,
Oops.
wait a minute. And I clicked it, crashed, then it came back up and it was fine. So, I mean, it should, if it doesn't come up, tell me.
No worries. Thanks.
And then we'll figure it out. Okay, questions on all that? No questions?
No.
Wow. Okay, hang on. Who said hard work beats talent?
Oh, I did.
I think that that's a combination.
I just read it somewhere.
Okay. Okay. Those are some pretty simple tools that I think are going to get you probably started and get you rethinking what you're doing, I'm hoping. Now, if you guys are doing like I think Mina had a poster where it looked a little bit illustrated, you might want to use like the oil filter or something to sort of make it start to look a little more illustrated. Combination of things, some of those Pixelate tool, and then go in and play with them. I actually want you to go in and play with them. I don't want to bore you to death with me going through all of them because I don't really think that's effective. What I'm trying to show you is like, look, I'm taking this simple thing, then I'm adding this thing we've already learned, and then I'm adding this little simple thing, and it actually looks pretty impressive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the stuff you guys are seeing, I don't care what it is, if it's illustration, photography, entertainment design, it's like when you see people doing those things, actually I'll put up a video of something later on. You'll look at it and go, that's how they're doing that? That's actually not that hard. You know what I mean? But they know what they're doing and they know how to make a good image. And then that, by the way, is all the stuff I'm doing in here, a lot of this stuff you need to take basic design and things like that, because what I'm playing off of is contrast, value, size relationships, color relationships. It's all basic design, okay? Does that make sense? You need to take things in, you know, if you can, in correct order. If you're already in the middle of it and all that, that's great. But I just had an email from a student this morning, and we did a character design thing in digital drawing, and he really improved, he did a really good job. But now he's come back to me, I don't know, a couple weeks later, and going, all these people are telling me I should do this and that to improve my character design. And I go, look, what if I told you about character design throughout that class? I go, if you want to do character design, you better know how to draw people. You better be in life drawing. You better be in a sketchbook drawing, cafe sketching every day. You better be drawing animals and all sorts of things all the time, because if you can't draw people, you can't do character design. And it's the same thing with all this stuff. Like, get your basic skill set under your feet, and then you can do anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's going to make your life a lot easier. Okay. I know it's hard work. And I know everybody wants to jump to all that cool stuff. And in Photoshop, we can kind of jump to that cool stuff pretty quickly. But I just want to make sure that underlying all that you guys just have really good design skills. If you need drawing skills, good drawing skills. If you need painting skills, good painting skills, all that kind of stuff. So make sure all this digital technology is being fed by just good fundamental design and all that kind of stuff. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, I've known a million Photoshop jocks who know Photoshop backwards and forwards. They never make anything I want to look at because they're not artists. They're just Photoshop people. Don't do that. Like, don't put the software before the skill set, which I see a lot, which I think we talked about in here. That's why I think it's odd when people say I'm a digital artist. I'm like, well, nope, I don't know what that means. The only thing you do is digital? I don't get it. You know, I just don't get that. I don't know why anybody would call themselves out that way. I just think it's weird. You're an artist, or you're a designer, or you're an illustrator, whatever, right?
Definitely.
You know, because you look at CF Payne. CF Payne's a monster illustrator. Everybody knows CF Payne does that by hand. You know what I mean? The only thing they give a damn when they give CF Payne a project is they go, I want CF Payne's badass illustration. And all they care about is that CF Payne hits that deadline, and he does, even though he chooses to work traditionally. Okay? Nobody gives a damn. All they care about is, like, he makes a killer image, and he gets it to me on time. That's all he cares about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Too much emphasis is placed on these toys, these Cintiqs and software, and all those things are great, man. I mean, they're great tools, but too much emphasis is placed on it. I feel like there's an extension of video game culture in the Cintiq thing, where people come in, it's almost like an extension of that gaming idea, and it's like, that doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just like the tech.
Yeah, it's just your tools. It's like you didn't used to walk into an interview years ago and go, and they go, hey, you come in and go, hey, I know how to use a pen. I know how to use a pen.
Yeah.
You know, the art director would go, yeah, I get it. I mean, you should know how to use a pen and a pencil. And we're kind of in that same thing now with the digital thing, where 20 years ago, if you came in and go, I know Adobe, it meant something. Now, if you say that, you sound like your grandmother. You know what I mean? Because the art director, whoever you're interviewing with, is going to go, of course you know Adobe. Like, really? Like, you're mentioning that? Wait a minute. You don't sound like you're very contemporary in your thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's a danger in that. Like, when I was interviewing people, I had this guy come in one time, and he was probably like my age now. He's wearing like a Hawaiian shirt, and he's telling me all this, like, here's these fire reprints I did in 1994. And he was talking like it was 1994. He was showing me work like he was proud of because he did it in Photoshop. And you're just like, dude, you are so out of touch. You know what I mean? Like, you still think this is impressive that you know Photoshop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was super weird to me. And he's showing me all this stuff, and I'm going, okay, number one, your work sucks. Like, you're a terrible designer. And then all you're talking about are, I know Photoshop, man. And it's like, dude, it's 2007. What are you doing? You know?
Yeah. It's like standard. It's like the standard baseline set for you to be able.
Yes, exactly. It's like,
I
and why
think
are you showing me fiery prints? And why are you talking to me about service bureaus? Like, those are all gone. I mean, at that time, they were gone probably for 12 years. I mean, those things were all gone. And I'm just going, what? You know, there's no way I'm hiring you. You know,
Yeah.
all that interview was about is shutting it down and getting rid of him. You know, and he was an old guy like me, which I don't care about that if you're great, but he was like trying to be funny, and he was kind of loud, and he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And I go, you don't fit in here.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
Just
you don't fit in here at all. You know, you're going to be super annoying. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I want cool people. I want people who get along with our culture that we already have here, and you don't fit it. But hang on, let me do it. Okay, so I'm keeping track of who's coming in late. You guys know that now, right? Didn't last week. Okay, is everybody feeling fairly comfortable right now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so far.
Okay, because what I want is I don't want anybody getting behind or anything, okay? Just make sure you don't do that, okay? And I'm here to make sure you don't. And I think I just dumped quite a few tools on you today. But basically, it's select, modify, right? Our filters, and our layer effects, layer styles right here, okay? I think that's mostly what I went over today. So basically, layer styles has a bunch of stuff in it we went over. Filters has a bunch of stuff we went over. So it's basically in those two categories. And then select is just another way to modify your selection. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to wait till tomorrow to go over, unless anybody has any big, what I asked this earlier, anybody has any big problems with their comps. I'm going to quickly look at them today. So I think after going over all this, and the other thing we talked about was object selection tool. And the other thing we talked about was fill content aware, and that fills it with stuff around it and looks like you reconstructed it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to have to go through those things. All those tools are going to help you a lot in this project, obviously, because you're going to be extracting a lot of things. And again, I'm going to say this like a broken record. Don't avoid the pen tool, okay? If I do not want you going into Frank's class or somebody's class and him going, man, your students can't use a pen tool worth a damn. This class is designed to feed you guys into other classes. Does that make sense? And it makes me look like a jerk if you guys go into another class and you don't know what you're doing. Okay?
Yeah.
Again, I'm competitive. I want my students better than everybody else. Okay, I think I've asked everything. And nobody has any big glaring questions on their comps or anything?
I have a question.
Okay.
So for like everything that we went over today, can we practice it on our poster projects?
You can
or-
practice it however you want. Just make sure you make a copy of it so you can just destroy it.
Okay.
Just make a copy. If you go like right here, so here's my, let's say this is my project, okay? And I want to make a copy of it. I just go Option, drag, and it makes a copy and work off that.
Okay.
Just make sure that, you know, and then have at it. Just wreck it. Go in there and just play and have fun. Or do like, you know, go get something else like I did. And, you know, this guy, I just landed on that picture, that kind of sinister looking guy. I would probably go in there and really light that really cool and stuff. And I probably, by the way, would have probably extracted him out before I started that. So then if I wanted to, I could put a really dimly lit, maybe bookcases in the background and maybe put a candle back there or whatever, you know, where it's all sitting behind him. Because all this stuff, when I start doing it, I'm sure all you guys have the same thing. as soon as I start working on it, I just go down this rabbit hole of going, oh, wait, I should add this. And wait, what if he has a blue light? What if he has, wait, I can get a little key red light on the other side. You know, I just go down the rabbit hole, right?
Okay.
And I keep making that image more and more, hopefully interesting. And then at some point, I hopefully know when to stop, because you can overwork these things, right? But, you know, again, the beauty of digital is I can undo it. I can do non-destructive editing where I can go edit it some more, get rid of it, you know, all that kind of stuff. So make sure when you're doing like simple things like, you know, your layer adjust, or use your layer adjustment tools, your adjustment layer tools, and as much as possible, go in and do non-destructive stuff. And if I can't do a non-destructive thing, I might just make a copy of the layer and just work on that layer. So if I need to, I can eliminate that layer, and all the non-destructive stuff I did is still going to live there, but I've got the original file under there, right? And then whatever I affected on the original file, if I didn't like it, I can get rid of that layer, and then I've got my original file. On and on, right? And then we'll get into some stuff next week where more non-destructive stuff. I just want to get this sort of basic, you guys starting to think creatively, you guys starting to use all these tools and starting to put them all together in your own way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
If I don't teach you guys how to think for yourselves, I'm useless. I mean, it's true. If I sit there and I teach you guys a bunch of step-by-step crap and you go, okay, that's not going to teach you anything. You have to work creatively. And you'll see, I mean, you guys are already doing it. We've only been in this class for a week. You know what I mean? Which is weird to me. When we're on these compressed schedules in the summer, it's super weird to me because, like, you guys will start doing stuff so fast. I'm like, God, we've only been, last week was the first week. So it's always weird to me because, like, when I learned this stuff, man, that was a disaster. You know? Like, I can do any of this stuff. Like, they would show me really basic stuff, and I'm like, I don't get it. You know? And it was just me. You know? And again, I wasn't a digital native. You guys are. So this language isn't, you know. But I also just think you guys just get it faster. I mean, you guys get it way faster than I always expect. I don't know why I'm still shocked by that. You guys have been a good group, by the way. Go ahead.
When I first started it, I was like, I'm not going to understand this. Like, there's so many things. But then as I started doing it, I was like, oh, Professor was right. I get it.
Yeah. Like, it's a tool that you can start getting really impressive things. What I'm trying to do, and the reason that I tell you guys all the time, like with layers, like be careful with, you know, how cheeseball it can get. I'm always trying to make you guys aware down the road. Now, I don't expect you guys to be, and some of you are, super sophisticated in that yet. It's for those of you who are just starting, and some of you, you know, the ones who are more advanced, I do expect a little more of that. But what I'm trying to do is get your brain so, like, 6 months from now, you look at something from now or whenever and go, holy crap, that's what Mike was talking about. That's pretty cheesy what I did 6 months ago. And that's normal. That's super normal, okay? If you're not looking at things 6 months from now that you did 6 months ago and not going, holy crap, I can do that way better. Or, whoa, I was using way too much of that cheesy filter thing. That's normal. Like, you should, I hear students sometimes and they go, oh my God, I was looking at my work from like a year ago and it's so bad. And I go, that's good. You should be getting better. You should look at your work from a year ago and go, that looks like crap. You know what I mean? I find stuff once in a while from when I was at Fullerton that I was super proud of, that now I look at it and I go, oh my God, like what the heck were they thinking? Like, I stood up in front of this class and was all proud of this, and it's a mess. You know what I mean? But, you know, at the time, whatever, that's where my brain was. You know, you're always in this. What I want you to get from that point is part of being a designer, an artist, whatever it is you are, or any field you're in, is getting more sophisticated in your thinking, Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what I want to get you guys to do is start getting outside of your ecosystem and going, I'm just going to go drop in a mocha once in a while. That's what I used to do, and I still do it. I drop in a mocha. I don't even know what the show going on is. I just want to see some cool stuff. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's terrible. Most of the time, there's something in there I get out of it. You know what I mean? Or go to LACMA, or go to La Luz de Jesus, go to some contemporary gallery, go to some really great design show at the Pacific Design Center. Is that making sense? Go look at go to the, if you're a graphic designer, go to, I don't know, Nordstrom's and go look at the cosmetics counter. There's a lot of really great packaging in cosmetics. You know what I mean? Really beautiful packaging. And you can see a lot of very sophisticated packaging there. Go to stores that are high end, that have really upscale packaging and branding, and go look at that and go, why does that? I have students all the time with cosmetic. I used to take designers that work with me. I go, let's go over to wherever. Let's go to the cosmetics counter. Why? We're working on a food product. I go, I don't give a shit. We want to go look at good design. And we go over there and I go, look at that, look at that. And then some of the younger ones would go, well, all that is a white box, a logo, the word mark, and this, you know, this little flower image on the corner. And they go, why is that so bitchin'? I go, try and do it. Try and do something that looks that sophisticated, that balanced. And by the way, not only do they do that, they spot varnished maybe the flower, maybe they foil stamp just the word really small. Then they put a gloss over the white, and it's just, it's, you know, and everything's balanced. And they picked the perfect typeface. They kerned it just right, spaced it just right. That's not easy, okay? And it irritates me when people go, well, it's just this or it's just that. It's like, try and do it. And then they do try and do it. And I go, really? Does that look like that to you? That doesn't look sophisticated to me, man. That looks like you're trying. You're not hitting it. And that's because their brain doesn't get it, you know? And that's just part of learning as a designer, you know? We all get more sophisticated. You know, I can look at things I did 6 months ago, and I've been doing this 30 years or whatever. And I can look at stuff I did 6 months ago, and it makes me want to throw up. You know what I mean? Or I can look at something I did 2 weeks ago, and it makes me want to throw up. I always want to get better. 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 And I'm just going to do that until I'm even older than now, right? It never stops. The beauty of this is that it never stops, that you're always going to be trying to get better, hopefully, you know? If you sit around at some point in your life and go, I'm there, man. I don't need to learn anything else. You're screwed. You're done. You know what I mean? And I've known people like that, by the way, and they're usually not very impressive people, okay?
Professor, has anyone ever told you that you're a savage?
That what?
That you're a savage.
What's that?
How do I explain this?
Does anybody know what that is?
You kind of tell it how it is.
Is
Like
it
a
good or
badass.
bad?
It's a good thing. Like the way I'm saying it is a good thing. But
What does it mean? I don't know what it means.
You tell it like it is, Mike.
Oh, is that what that
like
means?
everything.
Is
Yeah.
that bad? I mean, that's good, right?
No, that's good.
Good. It's
How's
just
good?
I'm shocked.
Sometimes we need to hear it.
No, what I'm trying to do here, look, what I'm trying to do here, I don't like, okay, when I went to Fullerton, and I tell everybody this, so I'm sorry if you've been in another class of mine, you've heard this before, but I think it's important. When I came to Fullerton, I was a totally unaccomplishing idiot, okay? Now I was talented, but I had chosen to take a stupid path and not get anything done, okay? Then I came in there and I found myself, which is why I love this school so much. Plus, I just think they've always had a good program. But anyway, I changed completely overnight. I just got laser focused and I went like, I'm good at this, man. Like people told me this forever, but now I got mentors telling me I'm good at this and doing the same thing I'm doing with you guys and going, you need to do that. And you need to look at this, you know what I mean? And turn me on to all this stuff, man. Part of the reason you go to college is to get your horizons broadened, right? And then the other thing that I look at, so they kick me in the tail when I need it and all that. What I'm trying to do is just give one, okay, so then I taught a little bit kind of at the beginning of my career 20 years ago or whatever. And I went, wow, I really like this. And then I had to stop because I had that written into my contract, blah, blah, blah. And then I was starting to get really good opportunities. I was starting to move up and all this kind of stuff. And somebody said, look, you're the art director now. You can't be gone 2 days a week to teach or whatever. And I go, okay, I have to give this up, but I want to circle back to it. You know, it was hard for me to give it up. And because I was only doing it like 1 or 2 classes at night, but I really liked it. And then I go, I want to circle back to this. Like when I'm an old guy and I've had a good career and everything, and I can bring all that experience back to the classroom, I want to do that. And the number one place I wanted to do that was Fullerton. Because people go, I want to teach Art Center. I don't want to teach at Art Center. I want to teach at Fullerton. And part of the reason I want to do that is that I went, and they'd already started kind of doing it. I go, why can't you build a world-class program, a really good program in a city college, so students can go there and not have to spend a fortune and get a really good education, and then go on to whatever you want to do, okay? And then Frank and Phil started building that before I got here. But you know, they'd already started kind of doing that. And then I came in, and I've always said this, it's the only time I've come into a situation that I'm not really trying to fix everything. I'm trying to add to it. I'm trying to make it better, but it's already good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think part of my value, all three of our value, is that we've worked in the real world. It's a huge advantage. It's the reason Art Center is so revered, is because people there have actual experience. They're either in their careers or they've had big careers or whatever. And then you need to bring that. And the reason I talk about this all the time is that you need to bring a sense of the actual reality of having a career in this. And by the way, a lot of times I'm telling you guys like, oh, this happened and this guy was a jerk in this department and I don't like marketing. I want you guys to understand something. It's a super fun career, because I don't want to be up here and be the old fart that goes, oh, you're not going to do it. You don't care. You know, it's a bunch of bullshit. That's usually failures who tell you that because they failed. And it's not. It's a really fun career. The reason I usually, you know, we tend to go tell you something bad, or it's because we just want you to be aware of those things. You know what I mean? If I just came up here every day and went, hey, it's all sunshine and roses, then that's not going to help you. But it is a lot of sunshine and roses, and it is a lot of fun, and it is a lot of really, it's really, every now and then I think about this. I go, man, for the last almost 30 years, you've been able to just live your life as a creative person. It's fun. And a lot of the people I've met are great, and just, it's amazing when it, you know, when it's working and everything, and then you'll have low points and all that kind of stuff. But like, there's a lot of high points, and it's super fun to get up every morning and go, man, I'm gonna go make toys. You know what I mean? It's fun. You know what I mean? So I don't want you guys to think that I think it's not. It is. But I just want you guys to be super well trained, sophisticated in your thinking, and just be monster good, which means you've got to work really hard. Okay? And that's the dirty secret. Okay? When I used to come to Fullerton and just lecture when I was working on interesting projects and things like that, and the kids would go, they want a shortcut to drawing or whatever. And I go, if you want a shortcut to drawing, and I understand that everybody wants to get good as fast as possible. If you just want a shortcut, you probably shouldn't do this, right? Because the shortcut, if you're talking about drawing, is getting in your sketchbook and drawing your ass off every day, all the time. And man, you're going to get good real fast. You'll see how fast it works, but it's not a shortcut. It's hard work. You're just compressing all of it. You know what I mean? And you're fine tuning your eyes, and you're doing all those things every day in a sketchbook. And to me, drawing in a sketchbook is like the funnest thing in the world.